Mia's heart had always been strong, but it was breaking now, piece by piece, with each passing second. She stood in the dimly lit room, staring at her phone screen as the words blurred before her eyes. "I can't believe you did this." The message, so simple and so devastating, echoed in her mind, even as the world around her seemed to fall away. For weeks, she'd been carrying the weight of an unspoken truth, one that gnawed at her from the inside. The late-night calls. The long silences. The sudden, unexplained absences. And now, this. Proof. Indisputable proof that the man she loved, the man she trusted with everything she had been lying to her all along. "It's just a phase. He'll come around," she had told herself. But the truth was much darker than her hopes had allowed her to see. But before we dive deeper into Mia's emotional journey, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe if you're enjoying the story so far. This helps us keep bringing you more powerful and real stories like Mia's. Stay tuned, you won't want to miss what comes next. Mia had always been a romantic. She grew up believing in love stories that crossed oceans and stood the test of time. So, when she met Ethan during a summer work exchange program, she thought their connection was something special, something rare. Their bond felt effortless. He made her laugh, shared her dreams, and, most importantly, listened. It was like they'd known each other for a lifetime, even though they'd only met months earlier. Their relationship quickly turned long distance when Ethan's job took him across the country. But Mia didn't mind. She'd always believed love could withstand distance. They were different from all those other couples who drifted apart when separated. They were going to make it work. Mia was determined to prove it. But soon, the phone calls started to grow fewer. His work trips started to stretch longer. And every time they spoke, there was something off about Ethan's voice, his words, the way he dodged her questions. The doubts came slowly, creeping into her thoughts, quiet at first, then louder, gnawing at her, until one day they couldn't be ignored any longer. It was late one night, as Mia sat alone in her apartment, staring at her phone in her hands, that she saw it. A simple message on Ethan's phone, left open and unread. Just a single line from a woman she didn't know: "I miss you so much. I can't wait to see you again." Her heart stopped. Mia didn't want to believe it. She couldn't. Ethan was her everything. She couldn't imagine him, her Ethan, betraying her like this. But there it was. Clear. The text message that changed everything. She knew the woman's name. She was the one Ethan had mentioned in passing a few times, a colleague from work. But Mia had never suspected anything more than friendship. Maybe it's nothing, she told herself. Maybe it's just friendly banter. But deep down, she knew better. A sinking feeling in her chest told her that it wasn't just a casual conversation. She thought about all the late nights when Ethan would be busy with work. The trips that seemed to take longer and longer. The way he started to cancel their plans without explanation. Mia waited. Hours passed as she wrestled with herself, unsure of what to do. She had to confront him. She had to know. She couldn't take it anymore. The next morning, Mia called him. Ethan answered on the second ring, his voice warm, familiar, yet distant. "Hey, babe," he said, his usual affectionate greeting. "Ethan," Mia said, her voice trembling despite her best efforts to keep it steady. "I saw the message." Silence hung in the air. For a brief moment, Mia felt as though she might drown in the weight of the words she had just said. "You saw it?" Ethan's voice faltered. He knew. She could hear it. The guilt was thick in his tone. "Don't lie to me, Ethan," Mia said, her voice shaking now. "Don't tell me you didn't." "I saw the text." "Who is she?" Ethan hesitated for too long. "Mia, please." "No," she interrupted. "No more lies." There was a long pause. Mia could almost hear his thoughts racing through the silence. And then, finally, the words came, heavy and regretful. "I'm sorry, Mia. I didn't mean for it to happen this way." Ethan's voice cracked as if it hurt him to say it, but Mia felt no sympathy. The betrayal was too much to bear. "Who is she, Ethan?" Mia whispered, her voice barely audible, yet carrying the weight of 1,000 unspoken words. She wanted to shout, to scream at him, but all she could do was ask. Ask for the truth. Her name's Rachel, he admitted, his voice barely above a whisper. She's someone I met on one of the trips. I didn't think it would go this far." Mia's chest tightened. She could feel the tears welling up in her eyes, but she fought them back. She wouldn't cry in front of him. Not after everything. So all those work trips, those were lies? Ethan's silence spoke louder than any words ever could. Mia didn't need to hear more. The truth was already clear. As the days passed, Mia could feel herself slipping. Her world, once filled with love and laughter, now felt empty, hollow. Every song, every smell, every memory of Ethan seemed to taunt her, reminding her of the trust she had placed in him, and how easily it had been shattered. She had given him everything, believed in him, sacrificed parts of herself to make this relationship work. And for what? Her friends called, but she couldn't bring herself to answer. Ethan tried to apologize, to beg her to forgive him, but each apology felt more like a plea to salvage his own guilt than any real remorse for the pain he'd caused her. One morning, she stood in front of the mirror and looked at the woman staring back at her. The woman who had loved so deeply, so fiercely, yet had been betrayed in the worst way possible. She didn't recognize the reflection. She didn't know who she was anymore. And yet, deep down, a small spark of resolve flickered in her chest. She was going to be okay. She would be more than okay. She would rebuild herself, stronger and wiser, and learn that love, real love, starts with honesty. Trust. And it was something Ethan could never give her. Mia's world had tilted off its axis. She spent days replaying the moments she had shared with Ethan, dissecting everything, looking for signs she might have missed. But the truth was, she didn't want to find them. She didn't want to believe that the man she had trusted so completely could betray her in such a callous way. Her heart ached with each thought of him. There was a part of her that still loved him, part of her that still yearned for the warmth of their shared moments, the dreams they had built together. Maybe it's just a phase. Maybe this will pass, she thought, but each time the thought surfaced, it felt like a lie. The image of Ethan's face, his smile, his warmth, the way he made her feel safe, had been shattered, cracked open like a fragile glass ornament. Nothing was the same anymore. She spent long hours staring at her phone, looking at the messages she had saved from their earlier conversations. Ethan's words had once been a comfort, but now they felt cold and empty. She started to find patterns, inconsistencies. He was always busy. The excuses piled up, each more ridiculous than the last. "I'm working late tonight. Can't talk, I'm swamped with meetings. Sorry, had to run to a conference." She could hear the lies in his voice, and it wasn't just his words that were suspect. His behavior had changed, too. He was less affectionate on their calls, less eager to share his day with her. There was a distance between them now that Mia couldn't ignore, even though he kept saying everything was fine. And then came the night it all became too much to ignore. She had planned to visit him, her heart raced with excitement, thinking about seeing him again after weeks of longing. But when she called to confirm the details, he hesitated. I can't, Mia. Something's come up at work, Ethan said, his voice tight. It's a big deal. I'll make it up to you, okay? Her stomach twisted into knots. She tried to ignore the sinking feeling, but it was too strong. What's happening, Ethan, she thought, but the words wouldn't come. The days turned into weeks, and the emotional distance between them continued to stretch. Mia found herself lost in her own thoughts, wondering how she could have missed the signs. How could she have been so blind? She reached out to her friends, but they weren't much help. They told her the same thing they always did, you've got to trust him, Mia. But how could she trust someone who had lied so easily, so effortlessly? How could she trust someone who had turned their love into a series of convenient excuses? One afternoon, Mia sat at the kitchen table, scrolling through her phone mindlessly when a text message from Ethan appeared on the screen. "I miss you. I'll make it right, I promise." She stared at the message, her fingers hovering over the keyboard, unsure of what to say. She wanted to respond, to believe him. To tell him that everything would be okay, that she could forgive him and they could go back to the way things were. But the truth gnawed at her like a constant ache in her chest. The distance between them felt insurmountable, like a canyon she could never cross. "I miss you, too." She typed back, then stared at the screen for what felt like hours, wondering if her words had any meaning at all anymore. It wasn't long before Mia's suspicion turned into certainty. The cracks in their relationship were no longer small, they were vast, jagged chasms. Mia felt like she was standing on the edge of a cliff, and every step she took forward only made the fall feel inevitable. She decided to confront him again. This time, she would know. No more lying to herself. No more pretending everything was fine. She waited until the evening when Ethan called. His voice was as casual as always, the tone laced with that familiar warmth. But Mia wasn't fooled. She had been fooled long enough. "I need to ask you something," Mia said, her voice firm, her pulse pounding in her ears. "What's up, babe?" Ethan replied, sounding too nonchalant, like he didn't realize the storm brewing behind her words. "Why do you keep lying to me?" she asked, her voice trembling despite her efforts to keep calm. Ethan went silent for a moment. His pause spoke volumes. She could hear the hesitation in his breath, the subtle way his words faltered when he answered. "What do you mean?" he asked, but Mia could hear the guilt in his voice. "You've been lying to me about everything. The trips, the late nights, the woman you've been seeing. Don't pretend it's not true." "I saw the messages, Ethan. I know what's going on." There was a long pause before Ethan spoke again, and when he did, his voice was softer. "Mia, I didn't want you to find out this way. I never meant for it to go this far." Mia felt her chest tighten, the words choking her. "Then why did you let it go this far? Why didn't you just tell me the truth?" He didn't have an answer. There was no excuse, no justification. Just silence. "I trusted you," Mia said quietly, her heart breaking all over again. "I gave you everything. And you threw it all away." Mia spent the next few days in a daze, floating through life like a ghost. She couldn't eat, couldn't sleep, couldn't stop thinking about Ethan, about what they had, about what they could have been. But now, all of it felt like a lie. Every memory, every moment, twisted and broken. She found herself pacing the apartment, her mind spinning. She wanted to confront Ethan again. She wanted answers. But more than that, she wanted him to feel what she felt, to understand the depth of the pain he had caused. But what was the point? She knew the truth now. She had always known it in the pit of her stomach. The woman she had been before Ethan entered her life, the woman who had dreamed of a future filled with love and trust, seemed so far away now. She was someone she could barely recognize. It wasn't until she stood in front of her mirror that she realized something. The reflection staring back at her wasn't broken. It was strong. Stronger than the girl who had believed in Ethan. Stronger than the woman who had clung to a love that was never truly hers. She could move on. And she would. No more lies. No more second chances. Mia would reclaim her life. She would rebuild, piece by piece. Stronger. Smarter. Wiser. Mia spent the next few days trying to regain some sense of normalcy. She pushed herself to go out, to be around her friends, to pretend for a while that everything was okay. But every conversation, every moment of laughter felt like a mask she was forced to wear. Her friends tried to reach out, but her answers were clipped, distant. "How's everything with Ethan?" her best friend Julia asked over coffee, her eyes full of concern. "You guys still planning that visit?" Mia stared at her coffee, the steam rising in soft curls. She didn't know how to respond. How could she tell Julia that everything had fallen apart? That the foundation of her love had crumbled, and in its place was an emptiness she didn't know how to fill. "I don't know, Jules," Mia said softly, forcing a smile. "Things have changed. We'll figure it out." Her friend didn't press her further, but Mia knew Julia could see through the facade. Still, Mia couldn't bring herself to tell anyone the truth, not yet. She wasn't ready to face the reality of what had happened, and more than that, she wasn't ready to admit that she had been played for a fool. As the days stretched on, Mia became more withdrawn. She spent long hours alone in her apartment, thinking about what Ethan had done, about how much he had hurt her, and about the life she had given him. One evening, as she stood in front of the mirror, brushing her hair, she was suddenly overcome with the weight of everything. "I can't keep doing this." The thought echoed in her mind, and for the first time, Mia allowed herself to feel everything: the heartbreak, the anger, the sadness. The realization that Ethan was never going to change. That no matter how many apologies he gave, the betrayal would never go away. She let out a shaky breath, looking at herself with new eyes. The woman staring back at her wasn't the same one who had believed in Ethan's promises, who had put her heart on the line over and over. This woman, stronger, wiser, was someone who could walk away. Someone who deserved better. "I deserve more than this," Mia whispered to her reflection. And that was the moment she knew. She had to let go. No more holding on to a love that wasn't real. No more waiting for someone who would never value her the way she deserved. Mia had been avoiding Ethan's calls. She couldn't bear the thought of hearing his voice again, but the weight of it all was starting to suffocate her. Finally, after days of silence, she picked up the phone. She knew what she had to do. Ethan's voice on the other end was soft, apologetic, but Mia couldn't hear it the same way anymore. She had heard all his excuses before. He was sorry. He hadn't meant for it to go this far. He loved her. But none of it mattered. His words were just that, words. Empty promises that couldn't undo the damage he had caused. "Mia, please, I need you to understand. I never meant to hurt you." His voice cracked as he spoke, and Mia could almost hear the guilt in his tone. But it wasn't enough. "No, Ethan. You don't get it," Mia said, her voice steady but firm. "You lied. You betrayed me. And I let you. I let you hurt me over and over because I thought love would fix it. But love isn't enough when there's no trust." There was a long pause. Ethan's breathing was heavier now, and Mia could almost hear his heart breaking in his chest. But she wasn't going to let his pain move her this time. "I can't do this anymore," Mia continued, the words coming out in a rush. "I can't keep living in the shadow of your lies. I deserve someone who won't make me question everything we had. Someone who will be honest with me from the start." The days following the phone call were a blur. Mia cut off contact with Ethan completely. She deleted his messages, his pictures, everything that had once felt like a lifeline. She couldn't hold on to those memories anymore. They only hurt. At first, she thought she would crumble under the weight of it all. She cried herself to sleep for days, feeling the emptiness of the space Ethan had occupied in her life. There were moments when she felt so alone, like she'd never be able to love again. But slowly, something inside her shifted. She realized that she was stronger than she had given herself credit for. She didn't need Ethan to complete her. She had always been whole. And now, it was time for her to rebuild. Mia started to focus on herself again. She picked up her old hobbies, painting, reading, running, and began to rediscover the things that had made her happy before Ethan entered her life. She spent time with friends, laughing and enjoying the simple pleasures of life. It was painful at first, but with each passing day, the weight of her heartbreak lifted just a little. And then, one afternoon, Mia found herself standing in front of the art gallery she had always wanted to visit. She had planned to go with Ethan once, years ago, but they never made it. Now, she was standing there alone, but it felt different. She wasn't alone. She had herself, and that was enough. She smiled to herself, feeling the warm sunshine on her skin as she stepped inside the gallery. This was the first day of the rest of her life. She wasn't broken anymore. She was healing. And, more importantly, she was moving on. In the weeks that followed, Mia became more confident, more sure of who she was and what she wanted out of life. She started a new project at work, something she had always been passionate about but had put on the back burner for Ethan. She traveled to places she had dreamed of visiting, embraced the freedom of being her own person. Mia knew the road ahead wouldn't always be easy. There would be moments of doubt, moments when she would miss the connection she had once shared with Ethan. But she also knew she was stronger now. She was resilient, and nothing could take that away from her. One evening, as she sat on a bench overlooking the city, watching the sun dip below the horizon, Mia allowed herself to think of Ethan one last time. She didn't hate him anymore. She didn't need to. He had been a chapter in her life, but now, that chapter was over. She closed her eyes and took a deep breath, feeling the peace she had longed for. She was free. And she was finally ready to move forward. If you found strength in Mia's story, don't forget to like this video, share it with someone who might need to hear it, and subscribe for more emotional journeys. Your support means the world to us. Thanks for watching, and remember, no matter what life throws your way, you're never alone.